Hello, I'm Tom Wilkinson and welcome back to the Thinking in English podcast, a podcast for intermediate to advanced level English learners. Which city has been the capital of 3 different empires? Which city is located on 2 continents at the same time? And which city has been known throughout history by 3 very different names, including Byzantium and Constantinople? The answer, of course, is Istanbul. Today, we're going to explore the fascinating history of this city. For over 2,500 years, Istanbul has stood at the crossroads of Europe and Asia, Christianity and Islam, East and West. It has been a centre of politics, culture, religion and trade. So many of you requested this episode, and I hope you enjoy learning some history while improving your English comprehension and vocabulary. If you like listening to Thinking in English, please consider supporting me on Patreon for bonus episodes, ad-free versions of main episodes, conversation clubs, and much more. Here is today's vocabulary list. Empire. Empire. A large group of countries or regions controlled by one ruler or government. As in, the Roman Empire controlled land across Europe, Africa and Asia. Strategic. Strategic. Important for achieving goals, often due to location or advantage. As in, the city's position on the Bosphorus was very strategic for trade. Conquest. Conquest. The act of taking control of land or a city by force. As in, the Ottoman Conquest of Constantinople changed the region's history. Crossroads. Crossroads. A place where different cultures, regions or ideas meet. For example, Istanbul is a crossroads between Europe and Asia. Urbanization. Urbanization. The process of cities growing as more people move in. For example, rapid urbanization has made Istanbul a city of over 15 million people. Overpopulation. Overpopulation. When too many people live in an area for the resources available. As in, overpopulation has caused traffic and pollution problems in Istanbul. Let's start right at the beginning. Long before the city was called Constantinople or Istanbul, it was a small Greek colony known as Byzantium. According to historians, it was founded around 660 BCE by settlers from the city of Megara in Greece. Legend suggests that the leader of these settlers was Byzas, who named the city after himself. They chose the location due to its geography. Byzantium was built on the Bosphorus Strait. The Bosphorus Strait is a narrow stretch of water that connects the Black Sea to the Mediterranean Sea. This position was incredibly strategic. Any ship travelling between those 2 seas had to pass by Byzantium, which gave the city huge control over trade and commerce. At first, Byzantium wasn't a massive empire or a powerful capital. Instead, it was a relatively small but very wealthy settlement. The city was successful as traders from different regions, Greeks, Persians and later Romans, had to pass through or pay taxes to use its waters. Over time, Byzantium became an attractive place for larger empires to control. By the 4th century CE, Byzantium fell under the full control of the Roman Empire. The city caught the attention of one of the most powerful men in history, Emperor Constantine the Great. A few hundred years earlier, the city had actually been destroyed by a different Roman emperor, who then decided to name it New Rome. When Constantine became emperor, he decided to rebuild the city. In fact, He wanted to do more than just rebuild it. In the year 330, Constantine officially renamed the city Constantinople, which means the city of Constantine, and made it the new capital of the Roman Empire. Constantinople replaced Rome in the empire. Why move the capital of the Roman Empire from Rome? Once again, geography was probably the main reason. Rome was still a very important city, but Constantinople was closer to the Roman Empire's richest provinces. The Roman Empire had expanded east, and these regions were very important to the empire's economy. Constantinople sat at the crossroads of Europe and Asia, and in the centre of the Roman Empire. It was also easier to defend and better connected to major trade routes than Rome. However, less than 100 years later, the Roman Empire split. In the year 395, the Emperor Theodosius I died. His sons permanently divided the empire in half. The Western Roman Empire lasted about another 100 years until the Germanic kings overthrew the emperors. The Eastern Roman Empire lasted for a lot longer. After the Western Roman Empire collapsed, Constantinople remained the capital of what we now call the Byzantine Empire, or the Eastern Roman Empire. For almost 1,000 years, it stayed one of the most important cities in the world, and capital of a powerful empire. Constantinople became famous for its incredible architecture and culture. As the capital of the Byzantine Empire, Constantinople became a much more Greek city, as opposed to a Roman city in the past. At the same time, Constantinople was the heart of Orthodox Christianity. The Patriarch of Constantinople became one of the most influential religious leaders in the Christian world. The city was filled with churches, monasteries, and religious art. Perhaps the most well-known building is the Hagia Sophia, a massive church built in the 6th century, which stood as the largest cathedral in the world for nearly 1,000 years. The city was also surrounded by huge walls and fortifications, which allowed it to survive centuries of attacks by Persians, Arabs, Crusaders, and many others. However, these centuries of attacks from various different empires and armies significantly weakened Constantinople. The city was briefly taken over by the Catholic Latin Empire, and the city was then stuck in the middle of these two powerful organisations, the Catholic and the Orthodox churches. Constant wars left the city financially weakened, and people started leaving the city in search of a more stable home. Although the Byzantine Empire eventually recovered Constantinople, another empire was becoming interested in the city. The Ottoman Turks began conquering cities around Constantinople. They cut off the city from many of its allies and trade routes. Then, in 1453, Constantinople finally fell to the Ottoman Turks. The Ottomans were led by the ambitious Sultan Mehmed II, who is often remembered as Mehmed the Conqueror. The siege of Constantinople lasted over 50 days and was brutal. The Ottomans used massive cannons, some of the largest ever built at that time, to break through the city's famous walls. After weeks of fighting, the defenders were overwhelmed and Constantinople was captured. This event marked the end of the Byzantine Empire and the beginning of a new era. The Ottomans officially renamed the city Istanbul, although in Europe people continued to call it Constantinople for centuries, and declared Istanbul to be the capital of the Ottoman Empire. Interestingly, the name Istanbul has an unusual origin. For over 1,000 years, Greek speakers in the region often referred to Constantinople simply as the city. Istanbul likely comes from the Greek phrase estin polin. I'm not a Greek speaker, so I apologize for that bad pronunciation. But it comes from estin polin, which means into the city or to the city. And over time, estin polin evolved into the modern name Istanbul. When the Ottomans took over the city, it was basically empty. The citizens had fled violence and terrible conditions. Sultan Mehmed II repopulated the city by moving residents from other regions of the Ottoman Empire into Istanbul. He brought in Greeks, Muslims, Jews and Christians to create a diverse community living alongside the Ottoman Turks. Under Ottoman rule, Istanbul was also transformed into a Muslim cultural and political centre. Christian churches were converted into mosques, including the Hagia Sophia, and magnificent new structures were built. Two of the most famous are the Topkapi Palace, the home of the sultans, and later the Blue Mosque. Under Ottoman rule, the city of Istanbul experienced a long period of growth and peace. By the 19th century, however, the Ottoman Empire was in decline. Reforms were being pushed in the empire, and the Ottomans were being influenced by powerful nations of Western Europe. The city became connected to Europe by railway and steamboat, and British and French soldiers were based in Istanbul during the Crimean War. The Young Turks, an army of revolutionaries, took over Istanbul in 1908. A few years later, the Bulgarian army nearly took over the city again during a war in 1913. And then the Ottoman Empire became a key figure in World War I as part of the Central Powers, allied with Germany and the Austro-Hungarian Empire. As I'm sure you all know, the Central Powers were defeated, and after World War I, the Ottoman Empire finally collapsed. In 1923, the modern Republic of Turkey, now known as the Republic of Turkey, but I'll continue saying Turkey because that's how we say it in English commonly, but I will spell it in the Turkish way, was founded by Mustafa Kemal Atatürk, and the country's new capital was established in Ankara, not Istanbul. The government wanted to move away from the Ottoman past and create a modern, secular nation. But even though Istanbul was no longer the political capital, it remained the cultural and economic centre of Turkey. The city grew rapidly throughout the 20th century, especially as people from the countryside moved in search of work. This led to urbanisation and a massive population boom. Istanbul went from just over 1 million residents in the early 1900s to more than 15 million today. It's one of the biggest, most populated cities in the world. This massive population increase meant the city expanded in size, spreading into nearby areas. Even with this increase in city size, Istanbul struggles massively with the issues of overpopulation. It is often overcrowded, struggles with pollution, and the city is constantly challenged to deal with the social problems present in a massive city. It's like other megacities around the world, struggling with its massive population. Think of places like Manila in the Philippines or Jakarta in Indonesia. These massive megacities which have grown in a very short amount of time. Moreover, Istanbul is located in an area at risk of earthquakes. The overcrowding and also the large amount of construction work done without proper regulations means that natural disasters in Turkey tend to be particularly destructive. In the 21st century, Istanbul has become a very important place for Turkish trade and finance, and also a major tourist site. Istanbul is famous for its blend of East and West. Tourists love to see the skyscrapers alongside ancient churches and mosques, and the city is still seen as the bridge or the connection between Europe and Asia. So here is today's final thought. We've looked at Istanbul's past, but what about its future? Does this ancient city, with thousands of years of history, still matter in the modern world? First, Istanbul is home to more than 15 million people, making it one of the largest cities in Europe, even the whole world. It remains Turkey's economic engine, producing a huge share of the country's wealth, and it continues to be a cultural centre. At the same time, Istanbul faces big challenges. Its rapid urbanisation has led to overcrowding, traffic and pollution. Earthquake risk is another serious concern as the city sits near to major fault lines. Politically, Istanbul is often at the centre of debates about Turkey's future direction. Should the country look more towards Europe, or more towards the Middle East and Asia, or perhaps more towards China and Russia? But despite these challenges, Istanbul's strategic position gives it enormous importance. It remains a bridge between continents, controlling access to the Black Sea through the Bosphorus. So yes, I think Istanbul still matters, and in the future, I think it will continue to be an important city. But what do you think? Have you ever visited Istanbul? Are you from Istanbul? Let me know if there is anything I've missed in this episode. Let me know what city I should look at next. This was a comment on the YouTube version of the podcast. Someone suggested Istanbul. They mentioned it had been the capital of 3 empires. And as soon as I read that, I thought, yes, Istanbul should be the next city I cover. So I'm very curious to know what should I do next. So far, I have looked at Nagasaki in Japan, London in the UK, New York in the US, and now Istanbul. What should be next? Istanbul is actually one of the places I want to visit most. Growing up in the UK, I loved Turkish food. In fact, when I go to Tokyo in Japan, I always try and find a Turkish restaurant because I think the food is absolutely delicious. And I never managed to quite make it to Turkey yet, but I want to visit in the future. So I hope you enjoyed learning a little bit about Istanbul. I'm sure if you're from Turkey, maybe this was a very basic introduction. But if you are from other parts of the world, hopefully you have learned something and hopefully it was interesting. And you were able to learn some new vocabulary as well. You can always support me by going over to my Patreon and subscribing. I do weekly bonus episodes. We have 6 conversation clubs a week. And you can watch or listen to my main episodes with no adverts on as well. Thank you for listening, and I'll speak to you all next time. Goodbye.